Hi, this is Korinne, and so happy you're joining me today. We are going to paint a bouquet, an autumn bouquet in a pumpkin today, and we're going to use this DuraBright black film. It is a durable mixed media surface. It's great for a variety of mediums. We're going to use it with alcohol ink today. It is a film. It comes in these 9x12 sheets in a pack, and it is heavyweight and heat tolerant and non-staining and non-absorbent. So I have a piece of 5x7 paper cut here for today. Now this paper has a side that seems to be a little rougher and a side that's totally smooth. You can paint on both sides. For today's purpose, we're going to paint on the smooth side. I'm using snow cap today for the base so that the inks show up. And I have mixed some snow cap in with my inks in my palette. I'll be using snow cap plain with inks on top of it, and I'll be using snow cap mixed with inks. So let's get started. I'm going to start by using a number 8 brush, and I'm going to have that just damp with alcohol, and I'm going to go into a little bit of snow cap, wipe it off on my paper towel that's next to me, and let's just, and I am left-handed, disclaimer, I'm going to figure out, where is my tabletop, kind of go. I'm just going to scratch in a little bit of snow cap there. Make sure I kind of get a straight line across the paper. And then I'm going to start to do my pumpkin. So for this purpose, I want the pumpkin to be kind of oval shape. Get that side in. I want it big. I'm just kind of sketching with the snow cap now. Get my shape in. On the top of where the top's gonna go. And the bottom. So I'm going to get some snow cap and just start to put in the ridges of my pumpkin. Okay, let's come in with some snow cap mixed with a little bit of orange, sunset orange. And let's start to get some color in here. You can note I'm not covering the whole thing, just trying to get some color in. Just a base coat. So I'm keeping the inks fairly dry, otherwise it would start picking up the white underneath this. I'm going to come in now and just define where my lines are going to go in my pumpkin. And so I'm going to get a little bit of sunshine, actually some dandelion. Let's use dandelion. Let's decide where our ridges are going to go. And now I'm going to go into a little bit of sunset orange. Now when I work this, I am drying my ink off on the top of my palette. I'm into my ink without snow cap now, wiggling around the top of my palette to dry it off. I want it to be pretty thin. Let's just start to put some of these darks in. This is going to take multiple layers. And my brush is barely touching the paper. Very light strokes, not touching the paper much at all. Get a little more darkness in the bottom of that pumpkin, and for that I'm going to use some sepia, really just wiping it off so there's not much. I want to ground it. Cover the white that's there. And we'll get a little bit of that orange on top of that. So we're just adding layers. All right, and we're going to get some sunbright yellow or sunshine yellow highlights in the middle here. And let's come back in with some snow cap and the orange mixture and put another layer on here. And the colors from beneath are going to blend in a little bit. This is how I'm getting all this texture in the pumpkin as well. So I wanted the middle of the pumpkin to be lighter, but I don't want it to look that yellow. I'll just continue to add these layers. All right, let's get some good amount of orange down the center. And let's lighten up a few areas. So now I just have some plain white. There we go. We can add some of those highlights in the middle of the pumpkin. And you can start to see some of that ink's breaking up. I kind of like that. Some of the paper shows through that way. It gives it an interesting look. And every time I do this, it comes out different. I'm going to take my liner brush and I'm going to go into a little bit of meadow ink, which is pretty thick in my palette. And I'm just going to make those veins again really light. And then I'll highlight up against the veins. My meadow ink is pretty dry. So I can have these nice thin lines. Now let's go in with the number 2 brush. And I'm going to use some Snow Cap mixed with yellow. So it's just kind of a nice creamy light yellow color. And let's just come in here and highlight and start to make this pumpkin look like it's popping out a little bit. My light's coming from the left. And I'm using a very light touch because I really want to not pick up the colors beneath it. I'm just working this in. Okay, and we'll just blend this a little bit. Looks like the ink's a little bit heavier on this side. So let's do our table now. Just get that nice clean line here before we do that. And we'll let the pumpkin dry. We may have to go back into it in a little while, but we can let that dry for a little bit. And I'm going to get some Snow Cap and just start to move it along the bottom of this table. And keep my strokes moving from the pumpkin out. Make sure it's even. Okay, and now I'm going to go in, nice wet brush, some sepia ink. We're going to just start to move that in. some more sepia. This time the light's coming from the left, and so this side has to be darker. Just keep cleaning my brush. Now I want the inks to mix in with the inks below and kind of create their own pattern in this table. It's actually should turn out to look something like a wood grain as it mixes with the ink that's already down with the snow cap. All right, now it's clear I need more, since the light is coming from the left, I need more snow cap on the left, so I'm gonna make sure I have a nice clean brush. Go in and add some more in here. That way my shadow is on the right. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry a little bit before I move on, so we don't smudge it when we do our flowers. All right, so we've got our pumpkin done and we have our tabletop done, and it's nice and dry now. So now I'm going to start on those white flowers in the front. Getting a little bit of ember ink. And let's just put that down where we want the center of that flower to go. I know it's hard to see because it's against black. I think we're going to go here and we'll have a flower like here. I'm going to use my number 8 brush and my snow cap. I'm going to use my brush to create the strokes for the flowers. So these flowers are open. I'm getting a little ember in the petal, and that's okay. And the petals come down over the top of the pumpkin a bit. And this is the first layer. I have to turn my paper. I'm just putting another layer on. All right, we're gonna let that dry and then we'll come back and work on that a little bit more later. Let's start our second one. My snow cap's a little thicker this time. And I'm going to go back to that first one now. And add another layer. Okay. And then after that dries a bit, we'll add some other ink in there. We'll add some brown ink to just get some more interest in the center. So around underneath here, we have some green. So I'm going to go ahead and use my meadow green and start to just dab in with my number 2 brush some of these greens below these flowers. And we'll let that dry. So now let's figure out the arrangement itself. We're going to use some ember, and I'm going to switch over to my number 1 brush, and let's start to make some of this foliage. And we've got some that's going to come down over the pumpkin. And let's put a sprig of it up in here. Look how bright that looks against the black. And now let's just add some leaves or something to this stem. I'll just be pretty free about it, and I'll let the ink dry however it wants. All right, let's make sure this is in here. I love how the ink just dries on its own. And let's see, there's 4 of those, so let's make 5. So let's put maybe one up in here. I like to stick obviously to odd numbers. I like this to have a few more. Let's get some greens in between here and just start to build this out. And let's make this one kind of feathery. All right, next we're going to add some little white flowers. And to do that, I'm going to use my number 2 brush and some snow cap. And we're going to add 4 white flowers. 1. We're just going to put petals around. Maybe this one's looking out that way. And we'll put one here. I'm just using the side of my brush. I'm going to have one down here. Just push that brush down. And we'll have one up in here. My snow cap's very thick. Okay, and we can put a second coat on them. Give them some more petals. Make them a little fuller. This one's looking off this way. I have to turn my paper, sorry. I'll just add a couple more petals on this one. Okay, we're going to come in now. Let's see, I think I'll use the number 1 brush and some sepia. Let's give them centers. Now I'm going to just take that damp brush and just pull this center out a little bit. And while my brush still has some sepia on it, I'm going to add just a little bit, just a touch to the center of this flower. You can see I'm not picking up any of the white. And I'm going to come back here and just soften this. I just have a damp brush and I'm just softening this. And I'll soften this with just a damp brush. And then I'll come back in with the liner brush and I'll just darken this just a tad more. So we have to fill this middle in here. Let's get some greens in there. I'll use my number 2 brush. I'm going to go into my meadow mixed with snowcap. Let's just add some more greens in here, as if there's some more filler in this arrangement. Just tapping at it. And then we'll come back in with the pesto. So I have a different color in there and just I'm gonna put a different color in there too, so it's not all the same. And now I'm going to come into my mixture of yellow and white. Well, let's give it some more grasses in different colors. And maybe a couple of, how about a couple of ferns maybe? So maybe we have a couple of little ferns coming down here. Something coming out over that side. Maybe there's one in here too, in between these. And I'm not crazy about how that edge looks, so I'm going to take a Q-tip and put some alcohol on it and just remove this. And with this paper, it comes right off. That's better. Okay, let's get some more interest in the top. And maybe some of these grasses have some little, these yellow grasses have some little feathers on the top. And let's add ember. Let's just put a couple little flowers in. As if they're in between this filler here. Some little white flowers here and there. My ink's not totally white at this point either. Maybe there's some little ones here, maybe up in here. Just trying to visually see where we might need some. Let's get a little bit of brightness in the middle here. Maybe we can get some of these lighter. I'm going to turn this over again. And I'm just going to put maybe a couple of, get that down in there, tall, maybe white pieces of grass here and there. Brighten it up a little bit. And let's brighten this little feathery guy up a little bit. So I'm just taking the white on my brush and going into my white and we'll add a little highlight on the left hand side of that. It's going to mix in a little bit, so it'll be fine. It'll dull down. Okay, so now as I look at this, I think I want some interest on the front of the pumpkin. And so I'm going to do another one of these flowers down here. And so I'm going to grab that number 2 brush, I think, and go into my snow cap. Make sure it's pretty dry. And let's just put a white flower, oh, say down in here. Now this is going to pick up the orange from below, so I may need to put a couple of coats of the snow cap on. And I'm going to wait for that to dry a little bit before I put the next coat on. And I think I want a few other elements coming down the front of here. And so let's go back into that ember. That was pretty. And let's add maybe a few little flowers or something down in here. And let's go into the sepia. Let's put maybe something trailing over the front of this. Some kind of little vine. Maybe there's one over here too. Let's have 3 of those. Put one on the back side here. While I'm at it, I'm going to darken up the back of this side of the pumpkin since it's in the shadow. There we go, that looks better. And we'll finish up this flower. Again, very sticky, thick snow cap. Just trying to cover it. If it's too wet, it's just going to pull up. So sepia in the middle, and then with a damp brush, I'll pull it out a little bit, just softly. And then I'll go back in and grab a little bit of black and put that in. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some chiffon ink and put some spritz on this. All right, these are chiffon inks. They are by Funkadelic, a wispy light AI with a caress of golden pearl. And this one, the color on this is Josie. And this is a different orange, and this is Pita. And these are named after alcohol ink artists. And so I'm just going to open these one at a time. They do have a brush in them. I'm going to set this brush aside for now and just get my number 2 brush. And I'm just going to dip this in here, and I'm going to tap it on my painting and make some splatters. And then, so everything's not the same color, and do it once again. And that makes the painting, in my mind, very festive. So let me see if you can see those splatters. That's about as close as I can get. And you can see I've got all kinds of interesting patterns here with the mica that's in the ink. That little bit of golden pearl that's in there. And it just adds that festive look to the painting. So here's the completed painting. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and look forward to seeing your pumpkin bouquets. If you enjoyed today's presentation, please follow me on any of these social media channels. You can find my e-courses in the Create Smart Academy, and please feel free to visit my website at CorinneCarpinoArt.com. Learn with me for my schedule of live and virtual workshops. While you're there, check out the blog for free lessons, tips, tricks, and more techniques. Happy inking!